Hey everybody, this is Scary Spikes and welcome to another Star Citizen video. On the eve of the 3.15 launch, or at least I hope, we're going to be talking about the best features of 3.15 according to me. Now of course these are my opinions and yours can be different, and that's okay. And before we get started, if you find this video helpful and you enjoyed it, please make sure to let me know by leaving a like down below. Of course, also subscribing if you're new, and ringing that bell so that you don't miss my future weekly uploads as I upload videos every week. Also, make sure to join us live on stream Wednesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch, and of course our amazing Discord community. The links for those can be found down below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the best features in 3.15. So in 3.14, we got our first look at what the hospital and the medical system was going to be like, and that was nice, but there was not really any functionality there. We only had the hospitals over at Orison and New Babbage, and they served to be nothing more than just really some eye candy to give us something to look forward to. Well, now it's 3.15, and we're at the Kelto RX clinic at Everest Harbor. Similar clinics can be found at Bikini Point, Port Trezler, and of course we also have the Orison and New Babbage hospitals as well, which are much larger and presumably will offer more services. But there are three pillars of the medical system, three major things that these kinds of clinics will offer to players in 3.15 and beyond. And the first two are very simple. It's restorative and regenerative medicine, which we'll talk about once we get into one of the rooms. And the third, of course, is pharmaceuticals. And you'll be able to find one of these pharmacies in any of the hospitals and any of the clinics around Stanton to get all sorts of cocktails to help with all sorts of ailments. And of course, all of it for medicinal use. So let's go ahead and check in, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the medical system and how restorative and regenerative medicine works. So once you're assigned to a room, you will want to go over to the room that you're assigned to, obviously. And in these clinics, we'll have the first room right here, and then we have the rest of the medical rooms just in here. Since we're in room number 4, we're going to head over here and you'll be able to see the signs on the wall showing you what the rooms are. And just so you know, you'll only be able to enter this room once. Once you leave it again, you will need to go ahead and re-register. So we're going to go ahead and step in here and take a look. And this is very modern looking. Really quite nice and spacious, and I can only imagine that the UEE is paying very well for our stay here. But that being said, let's talk first about restorative medicine. So restorative medicine is very important in 3.15, and honestly there's a bunch of different ways you can do it, from of course all of the different types of medicine that you can purchase at the pharmacy to the new medical gun that can do all of that for you. And of course then we also have the hospitals and all of the clinics around Stanton. So the best way that you can cure yourself or heal yourself in the event of being injured in any way is simply just go ahead and lie down on one of these beds. And the moment that you do that, restorative therapy should begin momentarily, and it's usually automatic. What you can do as well is you'll get this little screen that pops up, and you can click on the first item there, and I'll show you basically what's wrong with you, and you'll be able to see what the problems are. Although I'm not sure if this is something that's going to change in the future where you'll have to click a button in order to be treated. I do quite like the fact that as soon as you lay down, you do have those diagnostics starting to take place, even though they're largely invisible, and that you do start to get restorative aid immediately. And that could be because maybe somebody brings you here and lays you down, and if they have to run off or do something, you can't expect that that person who may be incapacitated is going to be able to press a button, especially above them like that. So it's nice that that restorative action happens right away, although I'm feeling that that might get fleshed out a little bit more down the road. Now for regenerative medicine, it's a little bit different. By regenerative medicine, what I mean is where your body is going to be regenerated, and presumably this is going to be a clone of you once your current body expires in one way or another, whether you are shot, whether your spaceship explodes, or whether you die of asphyxiation because you forgot to put your helmet on before leaving the oxygenated zones of the space station that you were on. Whatever way you go, you'll be able to come back here. And what's really cool is if you want to change where you actually respawn, you can simply click on this second option here. And we do have another option here. It's detecting that I did originally start at New Babbage. And so when you start at New Babbage, your respawn point is automatically set to the hospital at New Babbage. If you start at Orison, the same goes. You'll be respawning at the Orison hospital. You can even change the location of your respawn to your ship if you happen to own a Carrick, for example, which is really, really cool. And so we can always change this back to our default, but I've already changed this to the Kelto Clinic here at Everest Harbor just because it's a bit easier for me. It's a more central location, and I prefer to make Hurston my home anyway, so this is why I've changed it. But you can always change this back in this clinic. You don't actually have to go back to your starting point, for example, the hospital at New Babbage, but you can simply click this button if you do want to make that change and click on confirm, and then that change will be made for you. And then after that, if your body is to expire at some point for any reason, then you'll be respawning back at the destination that you chose. So that is really, really cool. I really love the way that that works. Obviously, there's a little bit more tweaking and content to be added to the gameplay here, and oh, that's not good. Let's go ahead and move on to my next favorite feature. So clinics and hospitals are great, but what if you can't get your patient to a treatment facility? Well, that's where paramedicine comes in, and as someone who was a transport medic in the past, this really speaks to me, and I feel like it's really going to open up a ton of gameplay loops and possibilities for those of us who want to be medical personnel. So let's go ahead and have a look at this, and man, this is just, I gotta tell you guys, one of the coolest things I think I've ever seen, and it's really, really well implemented here. So the first thing we're going to take a look at are medicines, and the second thing that we're going to take a look at are the different types of ways to administer said medicines. Now, these are in the shape of med pens, and they can be administered to your friends by simply targeting them and using the right mouse button. Of course, you can still target yourself with these with the left mouse button, but now you have to be very careful that you are diagnosing, triaging, and sort of isolating the symptoms and understanding what they are before you treat them, because overdose is definitely a thing, as demonstrated by the space Narcan over here. And so we have a number of different treatment possibilities for different ailments, including musculoskeletal injuries, breathing or respiratory distress. We also have partial paralysis and a number of other things that we can treat by simply selecting the right medication after diagnosing and triaging the patient. Now, what's really cool too is that you don't have to be carrying around these pens. You can, if you want to be a little bit more sort of active in that role, is you can go ahead and carry either the multi-tool, which you can have attachments for, which aid you in healing and in assisting other players, or you can simply go ahead and get the Paramed gun here, which is somewhat of an all-in-one solution, and it's really, really cool. I'll show you guys how that works in just a little bit, but of course we need to get out of the Armistice Zone since the implementation of these has really been kind of disabled in the Armistice Zones, considering all the trolling that's been going on, people giving other people overdoses, which is just rude. But in any case, just having these options open to people who are open and want to play in a medical field is really, really cool. And the fact that, you know, it's not just as simple as stabbing somebody with a med pen anymore. Like, you really truly have to identify the issue. You have to identify the symptoms and see what that person is going through and give them the right medication and the right amount of that medication. So I think this is only going to grow and become better, and I cannot wait for the day when that happens. So there's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to assist somebody that's laying on the ground and bleeding out because you can't get them to the Carrick fast enough, or you can't get them to a hospital or a clinic that's in a far off distance quick enough. You're going to need to be able to administer medicine, stabilize them, and ensure that you help them and put them in a transport-ready state in order to be moved into a medical facility like the one behind me here on the Carrick. Well, the Paramed gun is honestly your best friend for this, so let's go ahead and check this out really quickly before we move on to the next step. So the Paramed gun is really, really cool. It does have a refillable cartridge at the very top here, which you can buy from the pharmacy that we were at earlier, and it gives you a ton of information as a paramedic or emergency medical personnel in order to be able to assess, triage, and treat the patient that you need to help the most. And what's really cool is, aside from all this information that you're given here, there is also an advanced mode. So if you hold F and click over here, you'll notice that we have an option to administer certain types of medications. We can clear this, and of course, if we are giving way too many medications, the gun should warn us at the bottom, which is not doing at the moment, that there is going to be a very high concentration of these medicines in the blood, which could cause an overdose. So you're going to be able to administer these medications as needed to your patient and hopefully get them ready into that sort of transport ready sort of state where you can then bring them into a tier 2 bed like the one on the Carrick here and provide further treatment, maybe on the way to the hospital, or you can even throw them into a tier 3 bed. Don't actually throw them, by the way. Like the one on the Cutlass Red, again, just to give them some additional support and bring them over to a higher grade medical facility to get all the care that they need. So this is honestly a really nice tool to have, and I love that it was implemented this well in 3.15. Can't wait to see what's going to be new and upcoming in future patches. My next favorite feature of 3.15 is a doozy, and is one that you guys are going to be using very often indeed. Of course, I can only imagine how much work went into this thing to make it happen and to be implemented as well as it is for now, but I can only imagine how much more work is going to be done in the future to get this thing really to where it needs to be, and I cannot wait to see what that will be like. But I digress. Of course, I'm talking about the physicalized inventory system, so let me show you a little bit more. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and press I, and that's going to get you this screen over here. And now everything is actually physicalized, so you have no more bag of holding, so to speak. And what's nice is you no longer have to worry about clicking on an item and then clicking on that pesky little green button on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, waiting for the little yellow triangle to disappear, just to make sure that you know that you're wearing something. Now, if you're wearing something, you're wearing it. So for example, if I want to take my armor off, I can do that. And it's going to take my backpack off as well, because I can't wear my backpack without my armor because they attach together. So it's an intelligent system that allows you to basically manage your inventory in ways that just kind of make sense. If we want to put our backpack back on, we can go ahead and do that. And that now gives us additional storage here, showing us our backpack, which is really cool. So you can do this with a number of different items, of course. We have our hospital gown here, which is really cool. If you want to replace your helmet, for example, you don't even have to take off the previous helmet. You can just simply drag your helmet over, and it will simply replace it just like that. And it happens just about instantaneously, which is really, really nice. Now, if you want to, for example, move some of your gear between yourself and your ship, because now you have ship inventory as well as you have localized inventory at any of the landing zones that you're at. And then, of course, you also have your own inventory within your own pockets, so to speak. So what's really cool is you can move items not just between your local inventory and yourself, but you can also move things between your local inventory or yourself and your ship's inventory if you happen to be aboard your ship, which is really nice. So, for example, let's say this hospital gown, we wanted to put it on our ship. So we notice here we have a tab, and this says vehicle. So this is going to be our Carrack here, as we can see at the top. And the way that we're going to be able to move this, and this kind of, it was a little bit confusing for me at first because I didn't realize that there was a second tab here as well. So you have tabs for your personal inventory here, as well as your vehicle inventory. And then you have your local inventory, as well as your vehicle inventory here. So you can move things between locations quite easily. Now, the only gripe that I have about this is if you wanted to move all of these items, and sometimes, you will have a lot of items like weapons, ammunition, and things like that. You will want to move, all of it, or let's say a great deal of it, from one location to another. And unfortunately, you can't do that at the moment. You have to do everything sort of one by one, like so. You can't just go ahead and drag a line around them and move everything together. So unfortunately, that's not something that's a feature at the moment, but it hopefully will be one that will come in the future. Then if you want to move something between your own inventory and the ship, you can simply just click on that tab and just move that over. And then as you can see there, now we have this item in our ship inventory. What's important to note here is that if you have a friend on your ship, they are not going to be able to see this. This is a feature that CIG has talked about that is going to be coming in the future at some point. It's just not implemented right now, in the sense that if you were to put something in your ship's inventory and they look in your ship's inventory, they will not be able to see it there. They'll only be able to see the items that they themselves have placed in that ship inventory. So hopefully that's something that will change, because it doesn't make sense that the ship has like 10 different inventories, one for each of your crewmates. But of course, I understand the implications or the restrictions, at least, of implementing such a robust system so early on. And so hopefully that is something that we'll see a little bit of work. But that is the physicalized inventory system. It's not really as complicated as you would think. You do also have a nice sort of feature over here where you can sort of pseudo search. You can organize things. There is no search bar. Again, that is something that I would really love to have here. Just a little search bar where, if I know exactly what I'm looking for, I can just type that in very quickly and get all of the items that match that name to some degree to pop up, so I can just move them over conveniently. So those are the only two things that I would be looking for. Let me know what you are looking forward to in this physicalized inventory system, or what you'd like to see at least in the future. Those are sort of my two gripes. Other than that, though, it's honestly very well implemented, and is just pretty awesome that everything kind of has its place, and it just works really, really well from the get-go. So I really like this. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really looking forward to seeing this thing fleshed out a little bit more. Now, you can't have a physicalized inventory system without a good way to track it, and that's where the Knickknacks app comes into play. Now, let me know in the comments, but honestly, I don't like the name. I think it should be called Assets or something else generic like that. Yes, I know that's boring and it's not a cool little tongue-in-cheek name like this, but at the same time, it gives newer players a better idea as to what it does. You know, I think that's probably something that they should change, although I don't imagine that they will, but do let me know what you think in the comments below. Nevertheless, this is an application that will tell you what you have in terms of assets all around Stanton and beyond once we get to that point. But as you can see here, we have a number of different locations. I have Hurston, her L2, as well as Microtech, and if we go over to her L2, it'll show me that at Faithful Dream Station, I had purchased all of these different types of missiles and that I still have them laying there if I want to go and pick them up. So this is pretty cool. It does give you sort of a broad view of all of the different assets that you have around the system. And although you can't really interact with it beyond that, that is to say, you know, move that between one place and another, which hopefully will be a nice feature in the future. Maybe with a fee, you can hire a transportation company to move your assets for you. I don't know if that might be an option. Let me know what you think. But at least it gives you an idea as to where everything is so that you can kind of plan your adventures accordingly. So although it doesn't make as big of a splash as some of the other features in 3.15, I feel like I really got to talk about this one because it's really interesting and one of my favorite features as well. The prospect of residences hasn't really been too different over the last few major patches. You pick the place to spawn, and that's where you spawn. But now things have changed, especially with the new medical system. The place that you choose to be your permanent residence is now also going to be the jurisdiction in which you spawn should anything unfortunate happen to your body. So for example, right now we are hovering just over Hurston, right above Lorville here, and if I were to choose this as my home, then that means that if anything unfortunate were to happen to me, I would be respawning at the Kelto Clinic that we saw earlier, and that would be at Everest Harbor. The same can be said for Area 18 in Bajini Point, Orson, and of course the Orson Hospital, and Microtech at the New Babbage Hospital. One of the other interesting features too is that now, depending on where you spawn, you'll have access to your ships in a specific area. So no longer can you actually access a ship at a different space station than the one that is your home unless you claim it. And that's because by default, all of your ships and everything that you own is going to be at your home station at your main residence. The exception to the rule here is if, for example, you start over at Lorville and you make your way over to Everest Harbor, you will still be able to access all of your inventory as well as all of your ships from Lorville on Everest Harbor. If you happen to go to any other station, for example, or any other landing zone, though, you will need to claim your ship there in order to be able to fly it out from that location. I definitely think these changes are very meaningful and they are realistic to a degree. I really like the way that CIG is taking this. Let me know what your thoughts are on residences in the comments down below. Alright, so finally we're going to be talking about the most important thing I think in 3.15, and that's going to be the spaceships, because that's what we're all here for. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and have a look at the 400i. I did make a video about this, and this is a straight-to-flyable ship in 3.15. It is a medium-sized luxury exploration vessel from Origin Jumpworks that fits extremely well in between their 300 and 600 series. It's honestly a really beautiful ship to fly, and flies even better now after the PTU update. I know a lot of you have been complaining about the performance of the ship and that it's a little too heavy, a little bit too weighty, and maybe a little too floaty. So it's definitely been fixed. The video that I did make, though, keep in mind it was before that patch dropped, so it may handle a little differently for you than it did for me in my video, but nevertheless, it's an awesome ship and I would very much recommend it. We're also looking forward to the Point X patch, where we're poised to see the Ares, Inferno, and Ion, as well as the Redeemer. And man, I'm really looking forward to that. The Redeemer has been hanging ready for quite some time, so I'm so glad to finally see it come to fruition and have a look at the inside of that ship, take it out, do some bounty hunting, and make some stuff go boom. I really think that thing is going to give the Andromeda a run for its money. And then, of course, we have the 2 size 7 guns with spaceships attached, being the Ares Inferno and the Ares Ion. Really excited for those as well. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Well, I know this one was a little bit longer here, folks, but thank you so very much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here, as always. If you found the video informative, helpful, or even if I made you chuckle a little bit, feel free to leave me a like there to let me and YouTube know that you appreciated it. Subscribe if you're new, and of course, ring that bell so that you don't miss my future weekly uploads going forward. Of course, you can also join our stream Wednesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch and our amazing Discord community. Links for those are down below. And thank you guys again so very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.